Hi, my name's Mark. I'm going to show you how we turned our Chrysler Pacifica hybrid minivan into a camper. Now I'm hoping you've watched the features overview video first. There's a link below. With that out of the way, now let's take a deep dive into the design and construction. You can tell from this diagram that I'm an engineer, retired actually, but the important point is that in this 2-month project, I spent more than half the time on the design phase. The first step was to define our requirements. The vehicle had to fit in our single standard height garage space, had to get really good mileage, and we wanted to be able to run local errands with electricity alone. It had to carry 2 older adults and a dog in comfort, and it also had to be able to carry cargo for my projects occasionally, like building this camper. It turned out the only vehicle that met all the requirements was the Chrysler Pacifica hybrid. Once I had the van defined, I started on a conceptual layout. I took the second and third row seats out and found a 4x8 foot space available. I decided to use split decks so that they could be individually configured for sleeping or lounging. Next, I needed a place for a refrigerator as well as water and food, and this seemed to be cramping the interior space. Fortunately, in this van, you push a button and the front seats move forward, giving you extra space. Then the snack sled could slide forward against the front seat, leaving plenty of space for us to sleep as well as the dog. Now that I had a floor plan, I needed more details, so I fired up my Fusion 360 CAD software. I built a rough model of the body envelope of the van, being particularly careful to get the floor elevations correct. That let me model a front and rear base assembly and determine the leg lengths so that the beds would be level. Next, I mocked up some frames made of 1x6 lumber and added the decks out of 3/4 inch plywood. I segmented the decks into a seat back, and a fixed panel in the rear. I was able to simulate raising a seat back as well as raising the seat itself for storage access. Next, I determined that I could fit drawers that were 6 inches deep and 28 inches long. Finally, I simulated flip-up extensions to lengthen the bed. One of the best things about using CAD software is that I was able to insert a simulated human to make sure everything fit. Now it was time to pull out the old credit card. Here's a list of the wood and hardware that I used, and here's a summary of the material costs. At last, let's start building. Here's the van with the second and third row seats removed, and you can see the anchor points that are going to be used to tie down the new unit. I really didn't want it flying forward if I had to stop suddenly. There are wooden bases front and rear. The rear base wedges behind the lid for the stow-and-go rear seat. Next, I milled the 1x6 lumber for the frames. I used pocket hole joinery. The frames rest on the legs using lap joints, and they're bolted in place. One person can easily install and remove them. Then I made the decks from 3/4 inch pre-finished birch plywood. They're attached to the frame using Euro-style cabinet hinges. The adjustable seat backs use a piece of hardware called a drafting table stay. They work great. Then my wife stepped in to do the upholstery. We used a stack-up of 2-inch polyurethane plus 1 inch of memory foam. The front cushions are split so you can use them on the seat back and seat bottom, but the rear cushions are one piece. To make sure this unit doesn't go flying forward in a collision, it's tied down with 2 strong turnbuckles to the third row seat anchors. There are several ways to make drawers. I used pre-finished drawer sides and box joints to connect them. The drawers are suspended with heavy-duty latching drawer slides. With the basic camper done, it was time for some refinements. I built an emergency commode toilet under the right seat and put a battery pack under the left seat. Then I used the leftover plywood to make some bedside cabinets with folding tables. The snack sled consists of a base with T-tracks, some nylon slides that I custom made, and then a platform that holds the refrigerator and a water jug. There are locking handles to hold this in place so it doesn't move when you're driving. And that wraps it up. Thanks for watching and happy camping.